Dear viewers and listeners, I salute you all. Protocol observed. My name is Nathan from Fenlina Management Consultants, Pretoria, South Africa. I feel so delighted having the opportunity of sharing the subject of entrepreneurship and sustainable development, which should be on the forefront of our thoughts in an unprecedented manner. And the main emphasis is our beloved continent, Africa. The objectives of the lecture are to explain the importance of entrepreneurship in the prosperity of mankind and stewardship of nature, to emphasize the contribution that entrepreneurship makes to the achievement of sustainable development with keen emphasis on our beloved continent Africa, to reflect on the entrepreneurial achievements and hurdles Africa is facing in implementing the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals agenda, which is geared at alleviating poverty and hunger, establishing and maintaining peace and justice, plus effective stewardship of God's creation. By entrepreneurship, we mean the activity of setting up a business or businesses, taking on financial risks in the hope of profit. It can also be defined as the creation or extraction of economic value. By sustainable development, we mean development that meets the needs of the present without compromising on the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Centuries ago, when civilization started, man and woman were living and thriving on entrepreneurship. The great pyramids of Egypt that we remember, the farming in Mesopotamia, and many other civilizations at that time were all dependent on entrepreneurship. Even during the time of colonization, when our continent was subdivided into the 54 countries we have today, entrepreneurship was a very keen aspect that led to a lot of interest that was put on Africa in order to achieve their own goals. The Bible talks about entrepreneurship. We have King Solomon, Job, even Jesus as a carpenter. All were looking at entrepreneurship as a very important aspect in human life. Our forefathers, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, Emily Patrice Lumumba, Nelson Mandela, and many others viewed entrepreneurship and leadership as level of economic development. There are many verses in the Bible which stress the importance of entrepreneurship in our daily lives. Today, we see men and women involved in various forms of entrepreneurship: food, clothing, health, security, nature conservation, and many more. We see our former colonizers using entrepreneurship as the main tool to recolonize Africa through unfavorable trade agreements, extraction of mineral wealth without fear or favor, in exchange for arms to fight one another, and a lot of other instances where entrepreneurship activities are being conducted and concluded to the benefit and, on a number of occasions, to the detriment of our continent. In 2015, 195 nations agreed with the United Nations that they can change the world for the better. This would be accomplished by bringing together their respective governments, businesses, media, institutions of higher education, and local NGOs to improve the lives of the people in the countries by the year 2030, leaving no one behind. They agreed on 17 Sustainable Development Goals aimed at alleviating poverty and hunger, establishing peace and justice, effective stewardship of nature. It falls upon us to evaluate how far we have progressed in getting closer to the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals? Are there any significant strides and achievements that we can be proud of? Do we have the statistics to prove what we are saying? By the way, is the proof being brought forward based on correct sources of data? We are now 8 years old down the line. If we look back to 2015, have we made remarkable achievements in eradicating poverty, hunger, ensure good health and well-being of our people? Are our people sufficiently employed? If so, what percentage has decent jobs? Have we invested enough in educating our people to be able to contribute to the development of our economies? Or they just spend years in school? And if so, have we been creative and innovative enough to ensure that our young generation is trained and encouraged to be entrepreneurs or merely job seekers? Are we keen to create an increased industry, innovation, and infrastructure? Are we doing enough in mobilizing sustainable cities and communities? By establishing peace and justice in Africa, we look at the following issues. Is peace and justice real peace or just silence? Have we reduced inequality in our societies, where the poor and the rich are treated as equals? Are we promoting gender equality to enable everybody to participate in the entrepreneurship in a fair manner? We have peaceful nations all over Africa, and if not, what is it that needs to be done to ensure that conflicts are resolved amicably without shedding blood and death? Are we guaranteeing peace, security, and strong institutions? Is everybody involved in ensuring that we have effective nature stewardship mechanisms and interventions? Are we having interventions that are effective enough to deal with the effects as well? Have we tried to grow affordable clean energy? Are we dealing with climate changes and their effects? Are we advancing life on land and developing life below water? All these questions are questions being asked by our forefathers, and we need to answer those questions. We need to answer God as well if we are actually implementing all those that have been mentioned above and many others. If each of the answers is yes, and there is sufficient evidence to suggest so, then Africa is on a correct path to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The questions that remain are as follows. Between 2015 and now, 8 years down the line, are we able to proudly say that the progress we have made is something to be proud of? Will Africa combined be at 100% by the end of 2030 in each of the SDGs? What plans do we have in place to achieve the targets in the SDG agenda? Those are the questions that we are being challenged with today, for which we and our forefathers need answers. As we all know, a lot has been said about Africa and its challenges as a continent. Some of these challenges were inherited from the past when we were colonized, divided, and exploited by others, because this fragmented our strength and our ability to be creative, innovative, and determined. Others were a result of lack of awareness about the strength that Africa could have at that time if united as one country. Up to now, after many years of independence, Africa remains divided on a number of grounds, which as a result hinder the implementation of entrepreneurship and sustainable development interventions. In all our discussions, speeches that we get from our leaders, lectures by professionals, and talks in our communities, lack of unity has surfaced time and again, being unable to embrace each other's strengths and opportunities to create a conducive environment to the achievement of prosperity together. The Bible largely tells stories about ordinary people and their everyday lives. They include experiences of drought and hunger, suffering due to war and violence, and a constant fear of being struck by illness or misfortunes. All these are the areas where sustainable development and entrepreneurship working together can make us achieve each of these objectives and overcome all these worries about our people. These experiences often remind us of our vulnerability. They also fill us with fear regarding creation, its greatness, and generosity. From them, we recognize that we belong to a reality that is far beyond our understanding. Why is Africa unable to deal with these challenges? Africa is full of strong entrepreneurs who, given a conducive ground, can catapult our economies in a matter of years. They have the zeal, courage, stamina, and ability to make things happen. However, some of us are unable to reach our full potentials because of a number of issues. Lack of diligence is one of them. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4 talks about lazy minds, that lazy minds make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. So, at harvest time, they look but find nothing. It is important to note that there have been a lot of changes in climate and weather patterns due to our irresponsible consumption of resources and uncontrolled gas emissions. This makes it extremely difficult to ensure sustainability of our environment and nature, and the sustainability of our businesses, sustainability of our lives. Lack or shortage of business ethics. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 says, "So, whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets." Unfair business practices among us are part of our challenges. There have been reports in a number of instances where even now goods and services are unfairly and or illegally moved from one country to another, disadvantaging other countries to the detriment of the whole continent at large. Let us look at these challenges deeper. First is the question of leadership and trust. Africa lacks political will, and because of this, we have fraud, corruption, election rigging, abuse of democratic processes to cling on power, resulting into conflicts and security and safety threats. Economically, we are not able to efficiently utilize our resources in an efficient manner. Social factors, how we dress, cultural leaders' participation in decision making, religious affiliations, all these affect our ability to be very successful entrepreneurs. And as a result, sustainable development is slowing down. Technology. Are we creative enough and innovative? Are we using our skills in a more advantageous manner or to the detriment of our continent? Environmentally, we are abusing legislation relating to air and water pollution, deforestation, overgrazing, fishing, and many more. On the legal aspect, the crime prevention mechanisms, justice and equality mechanisms are not sound enough to overcome such problems. Border restrictions are part of the problems that are restricting movement across the entire continent. Cultural heterogeneity, lack of or difficulty in achieving social cohesion, other ethnic groups claiming to be more superior than others, language barrier, to name but few. We have also external influences which are resulting into conflicts, especially the Western influence, where it comes to a point of our leaders being misused to perform activities that affect our continent. We have the Chinese influence, we have the Arab influence. Because of our continent being military and economically weak as individual countries, that is why unity becomes very important. So we need to take advantage of unity so that we can be having a stronger bargaining power and a stronger army for that matter. Currency restrictions. We have many currencies that are of low value, uncontrolled printing of currencies, exchange rate fluctuations, prioritizing the US dollar in business transactions, and as a result, we are unable to transact as freely as we would. Then the issue of culture, as already mentioned, there is mistrust and unreliability. Our culture lacks accountability. We have desire to live beyond our means. We are not able to prioritize problems which result from unhealthy competition, class struggle, and many more in our communities. How can Africa get into solutions to cultural and social challenges relating to entrepreneurship and sustainable development? First, we need to accept the fact that due to the vast cultural, social, economic, and governance differences, coupled with external influences, Africa is heterogeneous. It may not be easy to have a one-size-fits-all solution. We must accept and appreciate our heterogeneity and work towards those areas that can unite us to live better and for the future generation. Secondly, we need to strengthen our public and private institutions, especially in the judicial system, which is an imperative for good governance, peace, security, and supporting our ecosystems in Africa. In addition, we need to develop and strengthen love for one another to win together. This talks to the fact that religious institutions have a big role to play in this regard. Having one language spoken and understood by all Africans will make it easy to have, appreciate, and strengthen our culture as Africans. We shall trade without fear of being taken advantage of because of language barriers. The spirit of Ubuntu, which is the foundation of many African cultures, will be strengthened further. Promoting a culture of trust and accountability will go a long way in addressing a number of entrepreneurial problems that Africa is facing currently. Investment will be enhanced among companies, governments, civil society within the continent. Promoting the culture of Ubuntu will ensure that there is respect for one another, as the Bible says, to focus more on love for one another and being each other's helper. This will minimize conflict or lead to alternative ways of resolving conflict than killing one another, and our resources will be channeled into addressing the critical sustainable development challenges such as fighting poverty, hunger, disease, and conserving nature instead of buying weapons to kill one another. Opening political boundaries will enable a fast, free, and smooth flow of goods and services within the continent to the benefit of every entrepreneur and consumer. It should, however, be noted that some countries have started the process of uniting by forming economic blocs, an African market, promoting one language, for instance, Swahili in the East African Federation, having one passport, relaxing borders, to name but few. We must regard this as a very important and significant progress and to take as a direction. Entrepreneurship and sustainable development in Africa will occur much better, much faster, if we converge into one country, one currency, one army, one language, one central bank, and one voice, in addition to what I have already mentioned. Smooth flow of goods and services. There are a number of projects that should spread across the continent but are currently prevented by border restrictions. For instance, highways, railways, electrical supply, to name but few. Having one country will remove such restrictions. This will make entrepreneurship amongst countries more simplified. What are the benefits? The leaders will have stronger bargaining power because we shall be having one voice when mega projects are being implemented on the continent. In addition, we shall be able to move easily, such as from Cape Town to Cairo and from Addis Ababa to Accra. This will elevate entrepreneurship by far because of convenience. One currency will ease the burdens of exchanging currency between countries in Africa. When traveling within Africa, one has to exchange currencies every time he or she crosses from one country to another. In many cases, it is not possible to ascertain the exact exchange rates at a particular time. The inconvenience alone is a hindrance to the free movement and a risk of theft, being killed, or even incorrect exchange rates. Having one currency will eliminate such obstacles. Being one country as Africa means having one African passport. This will make it much easier in case of identification, business transactions, crime prevention, voting, and so many other aspects. Being one country as Africa means having one army. This will make Africa much stronger than for individual countries. Having one language spoken and understood by all Africans will make it easy to appreciate and strengthen our culture as Africans. We shall trade without fear of being taken advantage of because of language barriers. The spirit of Ubuntu, which is the foundation of many African cultures, will be strengthened more. By having one central bank, it will be much favorable in terms of borrowing and lending in order to promote entrepreneurship. It is expected that the interest rates will be more controlled or even lower than the current interest rates offered by external banks. In conclusion, the lecture explains how important entrepreneurship is in the prosperity of mankind and stewardship of nature. Emphasis was focused on the contribution that entrepreneurship makes to the achievement of sustainable development, with keen emphasis on our beloved continent Africa. A reflection was also done on the hurdles Africa is facing in implementing the 2030 SDG agenda and possible solutions. Make it your responsibility to promote entrepreneurship and sustainable development by supporting this program through pledges, donation, presentation, participation, and otherwise. This program was brought to you by Fenlina Management Consultants from Pretoria, South Africa. For more information, feel free to contact me at +27 71 543 2931. Thank you.